All right, I think we're live, Greg.
All right, we're live, everybody.
Doing it live.
Doing
Hopefully
it live.
everybody's doing okay. Um, we talked about this a little earlier in the week about potentially doing a painting stream, and well, here we are. It's Thursday night for at least for people in the U.S. Um, and
Thirsty Thursday.
yeah, and I'm working on painting Slambo. I think in the earlier stream this week I had showed some early images of the model. Um, Now I'm a lot further than I had been, and I've been primarily just working on the armor, kind of experimenting with different ways to kind of highlight and paint the bronze armor. One of the things I've been spending a lot of time on is trying to get some really heavy shadows in different parts of the model, which I've largely painted in with either like black paint, and then also I've taken to add a bunch of glazes of like dark greens in some of the shadows, of kind of like a lot of like copper and stuff. When it oxidizes and ages, it has some like hints of like green and teal from, I guess they call that verdigris, I believe. And so I'm sort of experimenting with that. And we'll see, like, I don't know, I might later on go in and more overtly paint in some more green, like weathering and texturing on certain parts of the armor. But at this point, the only green areas you can sort of see, like on his helmet, for instance, like underneath the eyes. There's a lot of, or at least there's some of that.
Yeah, there's a fair deal of that greenish verdigris sort of. It looks great. And so most of the like metal color, or a bunch of that at least, was airbrushed on, and then you kind of like picked out like some more brighter highlights and stuff.
Yeah, so I had primed the model like a dark gray, and then once that dried, I painted the entire model black. And then when that dried, let me see if I can find
So
it.
you physically painted the model black. You didn't spray the
No,
black
I
on.
airbrushed that too. It's a much easier way to get a nice,
Like
clear,
consistent. Yeah.
consistent coat. Like, I used to prime and base coat everything with just the paintbrush, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
Particularly depending on the paints you're using. Some of them don't always have great coverage. But once it was painted black, then I did like a zenithal highlight of sorts with white. In this case, instead of using like a standard like white acrylic, I used this white acrylic ink. And I had heard from some people, if you're wanting to airbrush whites, that sometimes the inks do a better job of going on smoothly, because if you've ever even just tried to paint with white acrylics or use an airbrush, if you don't thin them correctly, they have a tendency to dry on the needle of the airbrush, and then that sort of results in an uneven coat, and it almost looks like your model's been splattered with specks of white.
Yeah.
And so I'd heard some people saying that if you use a white ink, that helps and you don't get as much of that. And so that's what I wanted to experiment with and see how well it worked. And it actually worked surprisingly well. And so then once that was done, I then did a similar thing. I sprayed over top of that with a gold. In this case, it's a scale 75 dwarven gold. And then that sort of just resulted in any areas that were white kind of turned a coppery gold color, and then the recessed areas still were largely black, or at least a darker color. And so once that dried, I then went into some of the shadows and sort of repainted some of them black and added in green.
So you first put down some black before adding the green.
A little, yeah. And I've sort of been kind of going back and forth with that. Like, I'm not certain areas, like, I don't necessarily like what they look like. And if you look even at some areas, you can sort of tell, like, on the lower part, like his legs, his thighs, you can tell there the color is a lot, almost like a dull whitish metallic, and some of
Yeah.
that's just
Well, that's because that's more worn because he sits down.
yeah, maybe that's it, Greg. But in actuality, it's just because you can sort of see some of the white ink in some of the
Yeah, okay.
metallic that I painted, but didn't necessarily get a ton of color and paint in there. So those are areas that I've. So like now, for instance, I have a green color, and I'm going to slowly kind of feather that in, kind of in some of these recesses. And this can kind of go back and forth with this. Sometimes, like, I feel like I'll add too much of the green, and then it can kind of take away from some of the look I was going for. But I mean, I found in many regards a lot of the areas, like, for years I've been trying to just, like, everything I paint to have really, like, smooth and nice transitions. And I don't know if the more that I've painted and looked at other people's models, like, I don't think having nice transitions is important, but they don't have to be everywhere. And, like, if you look at things in real life, like, oftentimes transitions and stuff can be pretty harsh.
Yeah.
So for instance, if you look at the front of the model on his, like, little belly plate, like, there's a transition to, like, a blackish green, pretty harsh, like, right at the lower part of his belly.
Yeah.
And also this, like, little circular metal plate there.
Yep.
And I sort of feel like that's kind of what.
That looks genuine.
Yeah, I feel it doesn't necessarily look bad, even though there's not. It doesn't look wrong per se.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to be more cognizant of some of that and not necessarily be upset if
Yeah.
not everything is perfect.
Some of the transitions, like, nobody is ever going to see or pay as much attention to. Like, I mean, I appreciate you calling out that particular detail because, like, I mean, I don't.
No, I mean, and it's another thing, like, it's a thing that it's hard. I feel most of the time when even like for me, like I tend to pay attention to like details and stuff on models and painted models, but it's still really easy to like kind of just gloss over stuff and not really look very closely at things.
Yeah.
And like certain little details and stuff like that, I think are can
Well,
be
I think
really
also
informative.
I don't do too much painting myself. I think maybe I'm not as much when I look at something like, oh, how do I think they achieved that? Because I'm not.
Well, yeah. And I mean, even the notion like there's literally like in some of these lower areas, like I literally just painted green. Like I don't think, at least initially, it's not necessarily a color you would always think like, yeah, you know what, I should get a bunch of green in there and like that'll kind of play to like some of the effects and stuff that I'm going for. And then I guess on top of that, I've also in some of the areas I've added in some like glazes of reds. So in this case, I recently got this scale 75 deep red that I've heard people really like. And so I glazed in a little of that in certain areas. Um, Maybe sort of with the idea that his armor and stuff has is sort of like drenched in blood, and so yeah, I don't know. I feel trying to, particularly even in like certain things that maybe could are kind of a little like boring, like even like something like armor and stuff like this. Trying to get in to add in some other colors and often add a lot of visual interest. And even if you don't necessarily realize what's happening, at least initially, um, I think some of it your mind like sort of subconsciously like recognizes. And I guess on top of that, even like when you're painting like skin or really anything, like if you actually look at people like someone's face, um you can see like lots of different colors, and so like a lot of people who are really good at painting faces and skin and stuff, if you really look closely at what they paint, there are often lots of reds and purples and greens, all throughout like what they're working on. So yeah, it's just something to keep in mind and sort of experiment with. Like this model in general was largely just had Slambo for a long time, and there have been a lot of people as of late who are painting some of these older models, and I thought it would be fun to try my hand at one and then at the same time sort of do a little more experimentation with different techniques and see if they could potentially inform future projects. And it's also sort of nice to paint some of these older single part like metal models, mainly because like in terms of like they're still pretty well detailed, but since they're all single piece, there's not as much like definition and like volume per se. So like it's sort of a little easier to paint. Like you don't have to worry about certain things that Like, for instance, all the new Sister of Battle models, they have all these cool cloaks and stuff that, like, you have to kind of think, like, well, how the fuck am I going to paint underneath that? Or do I want to not glue on certain parts of the model so I can paint the model? All of that stuff. Which, wow, you still have to consider some of that with models like this. Like, for this, like, I was debating on whether or not I wanted to glue the model on the base. I eventually decided to do it, but I feel it probably would have been easier that I painted the base separately.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna probably kind of be a challenge to get in there, but compared to some of the other things that I've painted, it's not gonna be nearly as much of a challenge. So I don't know, we'll see. We'll see what happens when we get there. And I guess this was also a thing to experiment more with, like, light and shadows and stuff, because, like, I feel, well, I've always done a little of that in models. I feel it was also more along the lines of, I'm gonna try and paint everything to, like, roughly the same quality and have, like, nice transitions and stuff at, like, every part of the model. And you can certainly do that, but it doesn't always make that much sense, because you won't really see that, like, all the stuff underneath and in between the model's legs, like, you can hardly see any of that, and not nearly as much light would get in there either. So, like, kind of trying to play off some of that, I feel, can also sort of add almost like other depth to the model itself, and kind of also trick the eye into looking at certain elements of the model that, like, maybe you spent more time on, or you want the viewer to look at. And I also did a little more of that also on, if you've been following the blog or Instagram, that Jungle Fighter Imperial Guard model that I painted recently. I also tried to consider some of that on that model as well.
About how much time would you say you've put into painting the model thus far?
Hmm. A few hours. Like, I wouldn't, like, probably about total time getting all the airbrush stuff done, it was probably maybe about 30 minutes to an hour. And then, like, the actual brush work, I've been spending like 30 minutes to an hour here and there working on the thing. Like, so one of the things with this, like, I feel I probably could have, if I had done some of this before, I probably could have done a lot of it much faster than I actually did. Because at this point, I'm still kind of going back and forth on different areas of the model, like adding more definition, adding more color here and there. because I think like, oh, maybe it needs it or doesn't need it. So I feel if I had painted a model like this before and done a similar effect, or if I just wanted to paint this model again, it would be a lot faster. But even despite that, I haven't spent that much time on the model. And I guess that's another thing. Like the more you paint, just in general, kind of the faster you'll get at really anything.
Yeah.
Oh, Hot Dice Miniatures, I think. Nice to have you here in chat. Maybe maybe the chat box is probably not really set up that well on this stream for me to read everything. But well,
They're asking what's up.
yeah.
And what's up for me is I'm going to change laundry. Give me a moment.
All right, Greg. Yeah, Hot Dice minis or miniatures. I'm working on painting an old an old Citadel model. In this case, I think his name was Slambo. They released a newer version of him maybe about a year or two ago in Finecast. This is one of the old metal models they released. I don't quite remember, like, to put him on this base, I cut off the little slot or the tab that would have told me when he was made. I probably looked at it at the time, but I don't quite remember. I don't quite remember what time that he was made, but it was probably in like the 80s. It's kind of a fun sculpt. It's certainly a little like a lot of those older sculpts. He's a little wonky, like huge hands, huge feet. In terms of this model, I actually resculpted some of his feet a little to make them look a little more like boots. Oh, so you painted him too? Yeah, he's great. I think it's interesting if you look back through a lot of the old models. There are some really strange ones. Some of which look really good, and then others who who maybe haven't aged quite as well. But I think Slambo looks good, and I think I actually prefer this sculpt to the newer one. The newer one out was well sculpted. His legs, something a little wrong with the legs. They're almost as if like the placement of his hips are wrong, and his legs attaching to his hips are super wide. It just looks super unnatural. But yeah, I've been experimenting with trying to paint in some like heavy shadows on his armor and to kind of give like yeah, Bob, he made a lot of cool models. Like I feel most of them now, if you really want any of them, you kind of just have to search around on eBay. And it's been interesting over the years. I feel like now more recently there's much more of a demand for some of the models, and I remember years ago like there were tons of metal models and stuff on eBay that were selling for like next to nothing. Now they're a lot, depending on what it is, some of them sell for a fair amount of money now. But I guess that's sort of true with a lot of things. Are you working on painting anything as of late? after I finish this model, I have to go back, and there's an Eldar model, an Eldar conversion of like an Eldar Corsair that I have to finish painting. For a while, I sort of had a goal to try and paint at least one oldhammer model a year. And I didn't do very well with it, but when I had initially started, I painted one of the old Space Orc Tin Boys in like an old Rogue Trader era, like Imperial Guard Adventurer. And then I had prepped a whole bunch more, but never got around to actually painting them, which is kind of a shame. Well, it's good to hear you're working on stuff too. I feel as of late I spend more time now sculpting and converting models and less time actually painting, which I feel I have to try and have more of a balance between the two. So I feel it's pretty easy. Like I feel once I spend all this time converting and sculpting things, I then feel as if like, oh man, like I've done nothing this year. I mean, I guess once this model's done, it'll be the second model I've painted this whole year, so like not very good. But whatever, it's fine. Everyone has kind of their own pace. So long as you're doing something with the hobby and having fun with it, it's okay. That's good. Yeah. The pandemic has certainly changed stuff for a lot of people. Um, and it certainly can be kind of like a good excuse to pull out hobby stuff and start working on it, whether it's building or painting or sculpting or whatever. God knows, probably most of us have a huge backlog of stuff to work on. I certainly do. But yeah, so now with this model, I'm kind of yeah. So like, I feel what for me, like I think I like the sculpting, converting aspect a little more than the painting. I mean, I do. I feel I do enjoy painting when I get around to doing it, but I feel it can be very easy to like put it off and say, you know what, I'll just do something else. Or I'll start converting another model. I know for me, I used to paint a lot, and then I sort of stopped for several years, and then like once you stop for a long time, I found it was really easy to convince myself that I didn't want to try and paint anything because I would just ruin whatever it was I was painting, which wasn't really true, but and I feel, I guess, now that with a lot of the models that I work on now, like I do a lot of sculpting and converting, and I know once you initially start painting the models, like I always sort of feel like, well, I just ruined all the work that I put into that model. Like now I got some of the initial colors down and it doesn't look good. And now I just ruined like 20 hours worth of sculpting. But
Yeah, I'm actually back. Sorry about that.
no problem, Greg. Still just slowly highlighting different parts of the gold. And adding more definition here and there.
Um, your maybe it's your hair, Adam, is getting in the way of most of the like some of the camera, or it could be some of your hat.
I don't know. It might be my hair. Like that's why I put my hat on recently to try and
Yeah.
prevent some of that. Natural look of putty plus basing, grit, and plastic and milliput all put together is just so attractive. I can see how you might think base coats ruin a good sculpt. Yeah. Um and I feel most of the time I'm least happy with any paint job right at the beginning because it's also true, like if you do a lot of sculpting on like other plastic parts and components, no matter how hard you try and get really smooth transitions between the plastic, like once you prime the model, you can then often see like, you know what, this section here, the transition's not quite as good, and like I'll have to either go back and try and smooth it out or just kind of ignore it and paint over it, and that can kind of be discouraging. But it is, I guess, sometimes kind of nice, like if you've done some extensive converting work, like once you actually prime it and get some paint on, then like it becomes a lot harder to kind of tell where all the different components and stuff have come from, and that can often
Even
be sort of rewarding.
even just putting primer on.
Yeah.
Like it kind of makes like stitches everything together seamlessly.
Mm-hmm. So, Greg, do you think you'll start to try and paint some stuff again anytime soon?
Um,
I guess, do you even have your paint anymore, Greg?
it I could go and get it at my parents' house. I still have all that paint. I'm first gonna try to put together some of these Gundam models that I have, and if that goes well, maybe I'll try to start painting some models again. But we'll see.
As I sort of talked about earlier, it's pretty easy to convince yourself not to do something.
Yeah, like you're always gonna find stuff that you have to do, and like it's kind of a thing like you're always gonna be busy with stuff, and you need or you should if you really want to do something, you maybe should try to just make time to do it.
Yeah, I sort of feel like with
Never
like,
gonna get easier.
yeah, if you really want to try and get painting done and become a little better at painting, I feel you should try and do a little of it every day.
Well, I remember when I was painting, maybe it was 4 years ago now. It was I was learning a lot about painting and stuff, and like it was kind of had a better appreciation for a lot of the cool stuff like I see on Instagram all the time. And now I kind of forget most of what I learned, or like all of what I learned.
I feel a lot of it can come back pretty quickly. I know that was sort of how I felt as well when
Well,
I took like a 6 year hiatus. Hey, Meandering Shade. How are you doing? Greg and I, we're doing pretty well.
yeah, I can't complain too much.
Trying to do a little more painting and streaming. Trying to make use of the capture card and whatnot that we acquired. And I guess the camera that I'm using. And I feel it's also a good excuse to try and force myself to do more painting.
Those models aren't painting themselves.
No, they're not. And I feel I'd also like to, sometime in the hopefully pretty near future, try and do some conversions and like sculpting work on stream as well. Then everyone can see how slow I am at it.
Well, it could be speed conversions, and then
Well,
you
yeah, I
could
feel I'd try
then
and
you
at
could
least do a little of that.
give them away to the people who are watching.
Nah, I think I will start doing some of that. How are you doing, Meandering Shade?
Looks like he just said that sleepless night. Same with his daughter. Hmm. It's not.
How is it outside? Is it pretty nice? Like here it recently got quite a bit warmer than it had been. So overall it's feeling more and more like,
Summer.
yeah, more and more like summer.
Sleepless nights aren't good. I've started to get up a lot earlier than I used to get into work to try to be out or be done with my shift before second shift comes in. So I've been getting up at like 5:30 in the morning, which at least is pretty early for me. I don't know about you, Adam. Fully unrelated. Like I've been for the past few weeks been waking up periodically in the middle of the night, and I'm convinced that the air in my bedroom is like toxic, and I run out of the room and then I need to get out of there. And then I realize that I'm fucking stupid. That's
I
not true.
feel that has happened to me before, but like I don't. It's been
Happened,
a
I think,
long time.
3 times last night. Just
That's weird.
last night. Yeah. And I don't know, it might be I used to when I at the parents' house would wake up convinced that there were spiders in the bed. And me waking up thinking that I can't breathe the oxygen in my room because it's toxic is something that I think I've only had at my apartment here.
That's
Which,
strange, Greg.
yeah,
Hopefully it stops.
yeah.
Hey everybody.
Hey, Eric.
How's it going?
Hot Dice Miniatures, it's true. There are a lot of YouTube painters, but very few like Ink 28 conversion videos.
Yeah, I feel that is sort of a niche that has not been tapped into for better or worse. I mean, I guess Colonel is doing it a little bit
Yeah.
or making videos about, his process and things like that. So that's, approaches that.
Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll start making some of those. They'll probably be more like streams, less so videos. But I guess they'll be on YouTube.
Yeah, I think at least at the moment, streaming would be an easier way to just go ahead with doing the conversion work or creation that you would wanted to do regardless without adding a huge amount of extra work, right?
Yeah, it depends on what it is. Like I feel some of it I might want to try and actually plan stuff out and try and like, all right, I'm going to do this and try and think of different types of conversions that maybe people would like to see. So like one thing
that's
like
true.
maybe work on converting smaller, more realistic like firearms and stuff, because that's sort of one of the things that maybe we're at least to some regards known for. So I think that could be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I guess ultimately any suggestions from anyone would certainly be appreciated as we're sort of trying to, figure out where to go, what to do. But I think kind of what I was getting at about taking less time or whatever would just be that doing like making nice videos with good transitions and having music and all that sort of stuff is a really time consuming thing. Like if you think about Miniac, his YouTube channel, he's certainly done a really nice job upping the quality of his videos with nice transitions and kind of humorous things and lots of different cuts of him talking, showing things, trying to trim them down such that he's not showing 100% of what he's doing, but still giving you, what you need, and then voicing over like comments on the stuff he clips. Like it's very purposeful, but then also, it would take a while to plan that out.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
So then that in itself becomes its own thing. Like that's, I mean, understandably, but that's his focus is making those videos, and I feel there's more of a focus on creating that content than like painting miniatures, for example. And I think now it's turned into, well, the only thing I will do is something to create a video, and it's understandable just because it's so time consuming. But I feel that would just derail any of our creative impulses, I feel.
It's easy enough to derail that on its own.
Oh yeah, so easy. So easy.
Actually, Hot Dice Miniatures, are you still selling the gaming mats and stuff? I mean, I remember that I think you're based out of Canada, and is that the brothers? Do you remember? Is it out of Canada?
I'm pretty sure it's Canada.
Yeah, it is.
And I feel like the last time we talked about it, maybe it hadn't caught on quite as
Yeah, we still should maybe show them on one of our streams. I mean, I feel because of
we don't play games.
Yeah, the pandemic in particular, like there's even less opportunity than before. But I feel the hope was to actually, play some things, who knows, maybe even something leading up to some of the games and stuff we were going to play in Adepticon.
Yeah.
But obviously, things changed. Things changed. But yeah.
He sold the company to a local person. Okay, well, hopefully he got some money out of that.
And in that sense, it's probably somewhat, or I could see being happy to somewhat be rid of it. I mean, I'm sure you were proud, and like the mats and stuff are really nice and such, but I could see it being perhaps somewhat of a relief to not have that weighing down on you as something you have to do.
The mats are really nice.
But I guess I have no business sense. So yeah, so that would be difficult.
Meandering Shade says that he always spent his evening searching and watching conversion videos. We watched all of Colonel's videos and a few from Pete the Wargamer. Yeah, I mean, there certainly could be a lot more videos about all of the stuff.
Making videos takes time.
Nah, yeah, it's true.
And
We already struggled to get our posts. I mean, hell, it's already halfway through the month and we don't have any posts. Well, I mean, we have the one, but
yeah, that's true. It's already like halfway through May.
and I guess I finished painting this Zaku, or I didn't finish painting. I finished assembling and started to do some simple paint work on it. So maybe that could be a thing.
That could certainly be a thing.
And I'm putting off jumping back into painting this last sister.
You're putting it off.
I don't feel like going forward with the base coats, but I guess I'm doing it right now. I'm shaking up one of the paints.
You go for it, Eric. Lot Dice Miniatures says check out Under the Glow videos. I'm not sure I've seen any of those.
It's always good to find some new videos to watch.
Yeah. What do you think, Eric, about painting metallic paints? How do you like it?
Oh, I've been putting off doing it for a while now. That's what I just started up.
Okay, yeah, I sort of feel like I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't love it. But I guess, I don't know, maybe I don't love painting anything.
I understand that. I feel oftentimes for a lot of the metallics, it's often easier just to you paint a base coat or so, and then you put some like washes and other shades over top of it, and most of the time it looks okay. And like,
I mean, that's all I do.
okay, you can say like, good enough. Yeah, so for this model, like,
I am quick to say good enough for everything I paint. I am very quick.
for this
be
model,
like-
there's so much of the model is gold that, or like metallic, that I'm
Yeah, you kind of feel like you have to
I'm
do
trying to put
something,
in
kind of push the contrast and things.
extra effort. Making it look nice. We'll see how it turns out. I think overall already it looks pretty good. It's certainly interesting looking, I guess.
To do like all the like you have sort of a lot of contrast in some of the under areas and stuff. Was that paint? Is that still a metallic paint, or like how did you, or did you just glaze a bunch of colors to darken?
A lot of the really darker areas, they're not metallic. They're just
Okay.
like, so let me actually find it. So, wait, where is it? So I just a while ago, there's a local hobby shop called Farbo Co. in Pennsylvania that we'd go to. I used to, every time I went there, I would get like a different paint set that they had. They used to have tons of paint sets, and I got this Malefic Flesh set, and one of the colors they have is this color called Deep Forest Skin, and it's this kind of an interesting like dark green color, and I used that in like some of the flesh tones on that jungle fighter that I recently painted, and that is the green that I've sort of like feathered in and like blended in like a lot of the shadows and stuff. And so like I sort of really like the green. It's like a really nice, let's actually see if I can. It's not very easy to see because the lighting's bad. Okay.
You need to get that. You need to put your other webcam for your palette cam, Adam.
I have a camera that I could use for that, but I don't.
You'd need to get yet another
A
arm
stand or something.
Yeah. Meandering Shade said that, just suggested that we've been a lot more consistent and productive than he's managed recently. That he wanted to finish the Lord of Blights masterclass, and then get on to some other stuff lying on his desk, but hasn't done anything since.
Well, you've gotten pretty far on the Blight Lord, dude.
I think he's finished, right?
Yeah, like
I feel it's pretty impressive that you actually went and actually did all that, and like to such excellent effect too. Like I would be pretty pleased to have done that.
Yeah, I feel like I've now more than ever, like I find with Instagram and stuff, it's really easy to like go on and look like you're constantly seeing all these cool models and conversions and stuff, and it's really easy to kind of convince yourself like, god damn it, like I'm not doing anything, and kind of compare yourself to other people. And I feel in general that's a mistake, because I mean everybody has their own issues and problems that they're dealing with, and um
Yeah. If you can just be working on anything, it's good. Well, towards that end, Greg, have you been working on that?
Any model kits?
Yeah.
I I've been so busy with work and
Mm,
so I'm part of a herpetological society where near where I'm from. So like herpetology is the study of amphibians and reptiles and such. And this tomorrow, actually, or this Friday, is our meeting for the month of May, which the last two meetings were canceled because of the pandemic. And tomorrow's meeting we're doing digitally. And I feel like all of this week, like most of my free time has been sending out emails to the group about that and setting up practice Zoom meetings to make sure all the technical kinks are worked out and like talking with the speaker whom isn't particularly computer savvy. So like boy, have I spent a lot of time on that. And I don't know, that kind of reminds me of the notion how you were talking about Miniac's channel, how he spends all these time making the like special little things on videos, like kind of just gets to the point that everything takes forever. Like I feel like I accomplished almost nothing aside from sending like some emails, but it still has taken all my time.
yeah, yeah.
Everything takes forever.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, actually, if it weren't for the pandemic, I would have been in Arizona this week for the Society of Investigative Dermatology annual meeting.
look out there, man. Nah, it probably would have been fun.
Yeah, but because last year I actually did a stream. We did a stream while I was in the hotel room there,
I'd forgotten that.
and then because of that, last year it was actually in Chicago, so I met up with Weirding Way and Dark Tech and stuff. So it was cool. It was nice, but they had like they're having a digital like Zoom like session for some of the stuff. Some of the
Okay, yeah.
had like a plenary sesh talk and such today, and it was whatever. I watched most of it, but
Nah, yeah, meandering shade. You should be happy with your the model that you finished because it looks great, and I guess the Eldar model that I'm working on, some of the scheme for that was at least partially based on um those masterclass videos, and I really do need to get back to that. Which I guess I could bring the model out, and I have the model. All the models that I'm working on here, they're under like a glass dome to prevent them from getting dust and shit on them. Yeah, so there we go. There. I was working on the armor, and then I need to get back to the model, but it's one of those things, like, since it's kind of doing something new, I'm not completely sure of all the colors and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to convince myself to work on something else.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. I understand that. This is why I so quickly jumped at assembling this Zaku. It's like if I do that, then I'm not painting. Although, admittedly, once I get past all the base coding stuff here, it'll be easier to.
Wait, Otis Hot Dice Miniature says conversation starter is Anna the 28th GOAT, or I think maybe that stands for greatest of all time. Like, she is super good. She has a very distinct painting and conversion style. She like works on terrain, like logos, design.
I personally can't believe. So, like, she started her blog, Gardens of Hakate, about at the same time we started our blog. And boy, right out of the gate, she had her own very distinct style. Like, she knew exactly what she wanted. And sure, it's maybe it's evolved a little bit and been fine tuned, but she had a very good idea of the vision that she wanted right from the onset of that blog. Whereas for us, I mean, maybe we had a little bit of an idea, but our starting posts aren't good.
They're pretty shit.
Yeah, and it was some just kind of general reviews and stuff that didn't.
Which, I mean, maybe they weren't bad, but like they're not what.
The photography sure was bad. The writing was probably bad.
I'm sure it wasn't horrible.
Yeah, but
bad.
Yeah, we didn't know what we really wanted to do with it, and it has been refined over the years.
Which I guess is what it is. It's fine. We certainly, over the years, our focus on the hobby and everything has changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that has certainly been because we've started to interact with a lot more people in the hobby community, and I think they've helped a lot.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. I mean, I feel that just interacting with other people in the community certainly encouraged us to get more into like the Ink 28 stuff and to get painting again, and
Yeah.
and it's been fun. Do you, Adam, touch models when you paint them?
Oh yeah, man.
I
I mean, I try not to. And I really actually like this Citadel holder or whatever. it does a pretty, since how like big and stuff it is, it does a pretty good job of um helping prevent you from touching your models. Like particularly with this Slambo model, since he's metal, like oh my god, like paint just chips and rubs off that like nobody's business. And thus far, like it's not been a problem. And that was part of the reason why I just glued them all to the base to begin with, so I could start using this before, because most of the time I use like just like a cork or something. And that, since how small it is, it's a lot easier to inadvertently like knock and touch your model. But this, since it's like so big, like it really helps prevent some of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I honestly have a pair of like a set of nitrile gloves, like a box of them that I brought home from work, and now I just wear a single nitrile glove.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Just then,
Such
do
that
you like paint on your hand, Eric?
not really,
I
not
do
a
all the
little bit.
time now. Like that's a good way, or at least for me, I find it's a good way to,
Test consistencies and
or you like get rid of extra paint. And
yeah, I haven't started to do that, but
I feel for me it kind of goes in stages. Um, and I think there's like I used to just, and I mean I still have it here. I have like a paper towel that I rub stuff on, but now since doing this live streaming, like I sort of have to situate stuff a little different. Oh, Hot Dice Miniatures. You said I can pull 100 likes on Instagram, but can never get a single comment on the blog. Feels like a waste of time usually. No, yeah, I understand that. Like, and like this, periodically I come to the conclusion, you know what, I'm gonna try and start commenting on more blogs and stuff that I look at, but it's really easy to not do it.
Easy to not do it, you mean?
And not do it, yeah.
yeah, to do it for a short time and then just stop.
Hot Dice Miniatures also says for chips on metal miniatures, prime the model and then prime them again with a clear glossy lacquer from a can. Then apply base coats, never chips. Well, so I did actually on this model, after I primed it, then I sprayed it black, then I used this white ink to coat that like a zenthal highlight. After I did that, I sprayed the model with a matte varnish in hopes that it would help with that, and I think it has. So like pretty similar to what you're suggesting. So yeah, I feel like in the future I'll do that more often. See, some of these older metal models, they have so many little like spikes and other things on them that, like, my goodness, you have to be careful.
I was gonna say, as for the notion of blogs, yeah, people don't comment on blogs for the most part. But I feel the one thing, at the very least, it's a good documentation of the stuff you've done, and um, you might be happy with it in the future that you did it, even though it would be more gratifying if people commented.
I mean, admittedly, Instagram and stuff like is a record of the stuff you did too.
Yeah, but
Not to the same extent. If you put the time to write about the process and such, and the thought going into it, like that stays.
But who does that? And we do a little, but
Yeah, so I can go some years in the future. I can go back and read my thoughts about painting whatever or something. I don't think I will do that. I mean, although admittedly, even with these sisters, as I've gone to back to paint one, I will sometimes go to the posts I wrote about it. It's like, what did I do for the base, or what did I do for?
Well, yeah, it depends on how you write the stuff. Like, if you actually include some of that detail, it can be pretty helpful.
Even if I don't like go back and read all the posts, it is kind of fun every once in a while to go and click on the different months of particular years and just see what we were doing at the time, whether I'm reading or not.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, how much more successful was I that year than this year? I feel like a few years ago when we took part in like the Pilgrim event and shit like that, that year I think I painted like nearly 25 miniatures or something. It's like, holy shit, like I painted so many models. And then probably the next year I probably painted 5. And that's largely what it's probably around that now. Which, I mean, again, whatever, like the amount of models doesn't really matter. And I feel for the most part it's a mistake to try and compare yourself to other people and their work.
Yeah,
I mean,
everyone has
sure,
different priorities.
you could try and use it to like inspire yourself to do more, but like, but I mean, Instagram is an interesting thing. Like, most of the time, you don't necessarily pay attention to who's, say, not posting or like how long it's been since someone's posted. So it's like, there are a few people who are constantly posting new things all the time. And so I guess related to that, like after this stream, as I could post a work in progress thing of Slambo on Instagram, make it seem like we're doing stuff. What do people
Yeah,
think?
I mean, it's true. True.
Yeah, he's actually turning out pretty well, I think.
Ash for GMG paints between 400 and 600 miniatures a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and I'm happy with 5.
All those models and all those YouTube videos, and it's cool how much he actually plays all those old games and has all those like retrospective videos and such. I think that's fun. He also has a podcast that I don't think he's released too many episodes recently, although I guess admittedly it it was something that he would record with like the people actually there in the studio with him
Mhm.
and not remotely, so I guess not really something that you can easily be doing now.
Yeah. Wait, actually, was there a consensus, everyone? Do we think we wanna? Do you think we should post the work?
Might as well.
Yeah, I guess it can't really hurt.
Yeah, not really. What brush are you using now, Adam?
A Series 7 size 0. And then I also
Okay.
have a size 1, which is nice. And then this is a Raphael size 1, which I do for
How
some
do
of
you
the initial work. It's
how do
pretty
you feel they
nice.
compare to the Winsor Newtons?
Um, Most of the Windsor Newton ones that I have and use, they're all pretty small. So like I don't have any Windsor Newton ones that are like kind of this larger brush, but like I think having more of these slightly larger brushes is actually pretty nice. Um, and you can actually use that for like most of the model, really. But I feel I tend to get used to really tiny brushes for like everything, which I guess is what it is.
Most of my paintings with a size 2 Series 7, which is pretty large.
Can you put that up? May I see it? Like to the.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe
so it's
it's
pretty big. Yeah, so that looks pretty similar to this size 1 Raphael brush.
because I can do most things with it. Like the points good enough that you can paint details, and there's
Yeah.
I know Miniac, he likes the Raphael brushes, and they're like the ones he uses.
Well, so the reason I bought one was because of him.
Well, so I think suggesting that they're cheaper and such, and I don't know. I mean, maybe they're cheaper in some places or whatever, but I feel like from whenever I've seen them in places, they're about the same price.
Yeah, I feel for me, like, since I buy brushes so rarely, like, most of the time, unless they're, like, ungodly expensive, like, I, it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, I'm not particularly concerned if, like, oh, this brush is $3 cheaper than that one.
I will say, like, some of these brushes, which are a little more expensive, like, they're certainly much nicer than most of, like, the Games Workshop brushes. Like, I have not had good experience with Games Workshop brushes. Um, I find they tend to lose their shape really quickly, even if you're trying to be careful with them.
I got like one of their medium shade brushes like a year ago or something, thinking that I would use it to paint my Mordheim stuff. Like I wanted to, and yeah, it's the point and stuff got ruined like immediately.
Yeah, I got like a large. Yeah, so I have some of those as well, and it like. I mean, I guess it's probably a lot of it's ultimately my fault because I maybe wasn't taking care of it as well as I should have. But like, I mean, I try and be pretty careful, clean them immediately. I have some of this like brush cleaner or soap to try and clean the bristles and stuff after each session. So
Yeah, no, I did the same. But to no avail.
yeah. So actually, Greg, what do you think? Do you think I should post a work in progress picture of Slambo on Instagram,
Um,
or do we think it would be better to just?
Maybe just not. Because people will be like, oh my, when it's done, they'll be like, oh my goodness, you painted an old Slambo model.
The only reason I would do it is maybe like people might, since it's not finished, people might actually look at the painting and comment more on it. And
Yeah.
I think the Imperial Rebel Orc podcast, they just had a new one. I think it's with Warburton, I believe.
oh,
There's actually an interview with him. I haven't listened to it yet, but that kind of fits with the topic of oldhammer and stuff.
yeah. One thing that I always thought was interesting for a lot of these like chaos models, like nearly all of them, they always have like these huge like nicks and stuff in their axes and like their swords and stuff. And I think about it now, like I probably should have went in and filled those in. I don't know if I always really liked the look of that. Like holy shit, like they're so like they're serious nicks. But it's too late. And I also think I probably, well, I resculpted his boots and stuff, which you can't really see very well now because they're black. I sort of feel like since I went and did that, I probably should have just made the feet smaller in general, and I really didn't.
Yeah, well,
'Cause, I mean, I guess in the end, he still would have looked kind of wonky, so.
yeah, you can always improve something or change something.
Yeah.
Going around painting all the little rivets and stuff on the Sister of Battle's armor.
Ooh, that's fun. Bet
Or
you
I guess
love
I've
that.
largely just been painting the silver in general.
What silver are you using?
This gunmetal from Vallejo model metallic air.
Okay, I don't think I have that.
It's pretty nice, like it's pretty thin and it.
A lot of the stuff I now use are all the scale 75 metallics, and part of the reason that I now taken to just using those is because they have, I just got some of their paint sets and they have a large range of different silvers and gold, so like it's easy to,
You just dilute them with water.
yes, it's pretty easy to get a range of different colors and stuff without having to think too much about what you're gonna use.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, friends, I think I'm going to bed.
yeah. Well, it was nice having you here, Greg. Like, I think I'll probably actually um stop the stream relatively soon too. Like, I've been painting for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I'll see y'all later. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
yeah, good luck at work tomorrow, Greg.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you, Greg. Yeah, so much silver detail. But I guess it's also kind of just, I'm just getting like a base coat and then work at it more.
Yeah.
With other, do some washes and then other highlights and whatever. And sadly, since this sister of battle is like, was a special weapon, her backpack has like more stuff on it.
Okay, yeah.
More stuff that needs to be painted.
Painting silver is pretty interesting too. Like for some of this, I'm trying to like paint different areas that like the light would hit it more. And then like when you're trying to like photograph it and stuff, like you can't even tell most of the time because
Yeah.
that's again where the light hits it and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting nice photographs of certain miniatures can certainly be a challenge.
Yeah, no, very much so.
So it seems like the camera tonight has worked relatively well, I think, for the most part.
Seems to stay relatively focused. Sometimes part of your head goes into the
Yeah, well, I'll need to.
screen and block stuff, but overall, I feel it's largely stayed focused. Because, right, like the cable you have for it, like you can't really adjust the camera much, right? Because it's not long
No,
enough.
I need to get a longer cable to connect it to the camera. Like we have, it's like a 6 foot cable, and that's like just as far as it goes. It's stretched out as far as it goes, so makes it hard. So while the camera that we're using has like a pretty nice arm that I could move it all around, we really can't because of the cable. Okay, well, so let's look at the model. So I don't know. I think he's coming along pretty well.
Yeah, the contrast.
I'm hoping that the model, I'll largely have the model done in a few more days. Not sure what color I want his boots to be. I mean, many regards, maybe keeping them black would probably actually be good. We'll see. I have to do a little more work with highlighting, re-highlighting some of the silver on his little gauntlets and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll have to, like, he has this like little symbol or whatnot on by his one shoulder. I'm not sure what color I want to paint that.
The brand.
The brand, yeah, maybe red. And so, like, there was another thing, like, I could potentially have his like, I feel a lot of people often make their eyes glowing and stuff, but I sort of I don't think I necessarily want that look for this model. I feel I'd rather kind of have him look more like soulless and void of any of that stuff.
Uh-huh.
I feel I'll probably keep the eyes black. Who knows what's beneath the armor?
It honestly kind of reminds me of something from like the Conan album covers and stuff.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That's not a bad thing.
No.
Horseback battle hammer.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll probably add some blood and stuff to his axes, but I want to keep it pretty minimal. Because otherwise I think can sometimes kind of cheapen the whole effect, and
Yeah.
but we'll see. That'll probably be one of the last things that we do. Yeah. Well, I guess I think maybe I'll call an end to the stream here. Thanks, Meandering Shade, Hot Dice Miniatures. Thanks for stopping by and chatting with all of us. It's been fun. Hopefully things are okay, Meandering Shade. Hopefully you can eventually get back to sleep. And same with, I think, your daughter. And try not to feel too bad about not getting more stuff done. You'll get back into working on stuff eventually, and it'll be great.
Nah, yeah, it's true.
But
It's
yeah, thanks
true.
everybody. We'll hopefully talk to you again soon. Until next time.
See you, everybody.